further ado, I'll let them get started. I think they're going to be doing a quick demo and then talk about the components of the solution. And then I'll be your moderator for today, and I'll be able to take over any questions that you may have and make sure that no questions get forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omar, for the introduction. I'm Jean-Michel Carré, and I work for CodeLate, and I develop the market in Europe, focusing on France. And there will be also Richard from Wasabi, who will be part of the presentation.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Richard Check, so I'm managing the EMEA sales for Wasabi Technologies, and I'm happy to join this webinar.
Okay. So from the FileCloud side, we offer a Dropbox-like file sharing and sync solution. Dropbox-like, but with a lot of additional features, which we will present during the webinar. A lot of tools regarding the GDPR regulations, a lot of possibilities to synchronize data between different computers, smartphone, tablets, plus a lot of additional features, particularly related to smart content classification, data leak prevention. And for the backend storage, although FileCloud is agnostic, today we found very interesting to introduce the Wasabi cloud storage, which Richard is going to present on the following slides. Richard?
Yeah, so Wasabi Technology is a company that is providing an object storage solution. So we are providing also a data center in Europe. So just a few words on the key aspect of the Wasabi Technology solution. We are providing an object storage solution, which is 80% cheaper than Amazon S3 and 6 times faster. So in terms of, maybe Jean-Michel, we can briefly talk about the company. The company has started in 2015. It has been created by the two founders from Carbonite, David Friend and Jeff Flowers. Carbonite is a well-known company in the IT business industry. They have been created in 2005, providing a cloud backup solution with a very large scale backend infrastructure to keep the backup files. The company has Wasabi has raised about 80 million last year, and we are providing only storage. So we are not providing any compute. We are just providing the object storage, Amazon compatible with Amazon S3. We are competing, of course, with Amazon, with Microsoft Blob Storage Solutions, as well as Google. As of today, we have about 12,000 customers all over the world. So, and we started the service about less than 2 years ago. We have about 1,500 customers in Amsterdam today, and we started Europe a few months ago in March of this year. So one of the reasons that explains the success for Wasabi is, let's say, the price, of course, 80% less expensive than Amazon. You can switch from Wasabi to Amazon Object Storage Solutions. We are not charging for downloads. So as opposed to what Amazon is doing and others in this area, we are not charging for the downloads, and we are not charging for the API calls. We are running our servers and storage systems 6 times faster than what Amazon can provide. So if you do an upload to Wasabi, you will get a performance that is much faster than what you can get from our competition. And we also are providing multiple ways to connect to Wasabi from the internet to private connectivity. In terms of protection, we are providing the highest level of data durability on the market today, 11.9 data durability. Just as a reminder, the data durability is reflecting the protection, the level of protection of the data on the system. And this is calculated based on different storage system architectures. And essentially, it comes from a calculation from Erasure coding algorithm that we have deployed on top of our file system. So we are providing 11.9 data durability everywhere. So we have the same level of data durability, whatever our location. And we have a specific and unique feature with Wasabi, which is the immutability of buckets. So you can define buckets that are behaving like a worm in the cloud. So any data that would be stored in these buckets cannot be deleted or removed or corrupted, even intentionally. So if ever, let's say you are moving your data to Wasabi and you are setting a bucket that is immutable, you are getting a situation where if ever these files or the files that you have stored on these buckets are infected, for example, by a ransomware, even the ransomware cannot encrypt the existing data. So it's a really safe way to keep data over the long term with a nice level of physical protection. In terms of worldwide presence, we have, of course, our European location, which is based in Amsterdam. So we are hosted in Equinix premises. So we are hosted in AM4 for the ones that are familiar with Equinix. You can check this, of course, on the internet. It's a tier 3+ data center that is considered as a mission critical data center. We are also providing other locations on the East Coast in Ashburn, and as well as on the West Coast for Wasabi in the US. And we have just announced our a new location in Japan, so that will open by December, and we are partnering with NTT for this European Japanese location. So we are able to connect through different providers. Of course, you can use the internet, but you can also use private or dedicated connectivity, including Amazon Direct Connect, for example, to get up to 10 gig per second connectivity to Wasabi without using the internet. We are partnering with multiple CDN providers, and we can provide, let's say, different level of SLAs in terms of networking connectivity.
Okay, thank you, Richard. That was very interesting. And this is also very interesting that we have this partnership between our two companies, because you provide a lot of storage, but the customers, they need also to be able to have a better granularity in sharing and accessing the data. FileCloud, as it is a cloud agnostic software platform, we do support local traditional storage, but we are more and more seeing customers being attracted by cloud storage, S3 or compatible S3 kind of storage, and the combination of the two makes the solution extremely attractive. We have been recognized by the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We have also extremely positive updates about us on Network World. We have a solid leadership team, impressive and long list of record customers, and we are positioned in a fast-growing market. A lot of top customers trust already FileCloud. We have more than 3,000 large companies, 200 partners, 90 countries where we have customers. A lot of these prestigious names are already shown on the picture. North America, NASA, US Army, UAE Minister, Swiss Federal, a lot of customers all over the planet who are using our solution. What do? We have to adjust to the market. Today, the marketplace and the workplace is becoming more and more digital and more mobile. So we have to support this new use of consuming and accessing the data, whether this is using a smartphone, using a tablet, or using a traditional PC. We have to adjust to the BYOD fashion. A lot of people now, they want to use their own device. They don't want to get a device from the company, from the employer. And if you start using also these devices, which might be used for professional activities, but also sometimes for private activities as well, we need to provide a strong data protection and making sure that by using one device for private use might not compromise the data, which are definitely most of the time company confidential data. So we have to have a very high degree of collaboration and we have at the same time to be able to provide access to the data anywhere on the planet for the users. In order to be better than Dropbox, OneDrive, or Google Drive, and like many other people probably on the call, I have a Dropbox account, and honestly, I will never put my bank accounts notices on my Dropbox, simply maybe a picture and something very open, because you don't know exactly when you use Dropbox if you're accessing your Dropbox account or this is something which has been shared by another person who wants to share data with you. With FileCloud, we have tools which are going to protect against data leak. We'll see that we have features from a software perspective to prevent employees or users with a profile which we do not consider they should be able to perform some operation, that they are not going to perform it. But if you think about an employee who is losing his smartphone or his tablet with a mix of private data and company data, we have also the possibility to wipe out the entire content of the tablet of the smartphone. We have protection against the ransomware, which is built in. A lot of ransomwares, they go through PDF files. They look like PDF, but they are not PDF files. So we can detect this in advance and prevent the data to be inserted into the system. To do that, we need to have a very robust and strong set of controls and administration tools. If you have already some encryption mechanism, you can encrypt the data, which is the best way also to protect your data. A lot of reporting tools, particularly with the GDPR regulation. There are a lot of additional constraints for the sake and the benefits of the private persons, but we have also to comply with this, and we have to provide you with tools which are going to make sure that the way you store data on the FileCloud share will remain you compliant with the GDPR regulation. When people connect to such tool to access data, it's nice to see the Code Lake logo, but if I am company A, let's say Wasabi, and I don't really know Wasabi, but if I connect to a location which shows the Wasabi logo instead of the FileCloud logo, then it gives me a better confidence to connect on this system. And at the same time, this brings additional value of the Wasabi brand name. So we offer the possibility to customize or to do white labeling on most of the tools which we provide and which you can use, so that you preserve your brand and you preserve also, you give confidence to the customer. In many file sharing solutions, there are a lot of users which are going to barely access the system. Maybe they need to download a few files, and sometimes also they will never upload a new file or modify the file. These users, we call them the limited users. And all of these users, we do not consider that they have to be charged for the solution. So in other words, from a pricing perspective, we charge the software per the number of users, but we do not count these limited or external users with limited access and limited permissions on the FileCloud system. And we have many things that we offer. Of course, we offer remote access, file sharing, collaboration, administrative tools and controls, with the possibility to give limited but partial administrative permissions to some of the users. For example, for the DPO, if he wants to make sure that there is no break in the GDPR rule, he has permissions to go and through a different verification to make sure that there is no data which are not compliant with the GDPR regulation. Security, accessing the data, security, protecting the data, the possibility to customize the data. When you want to consume, when you want to access the data, you have several possibilities. The first one, of course, is to go through the web interface. But I can use an application which is called FileCloud Sync or FileCloud Drive. So this is primarily for PCs, Apple workstation. FileCloud Drive is going to map a new drive, which instead will be pointing to the FileCloud storage. If I disconnect from the system, disconnect from the internet, I no longer have access to this data. if I want to preserve the access, maybe not to all of the data, but to a part of them, I installed the FileCloud Sync application. So I have a copy of a part of my folder structure on my PC. I can work on this data even though I'm not connected to the internet. And the next time I connect to the internet, FileCloud Sync is going to resynchronize the data on the central site. And of course, we have mechanisms which are keeping track of different versions. By default, we keep 3 versions of the data. And if there are some conflicts, there will be a notification by email to tell the administrator, please check these 2 files. One is good and one is not good. Mobile applications, iOS, Android, we provide them, and we have more and more customers who are interested by this. We have a lot of customers in the engineering industry, and sometimes they have people who are on site. They are delivering big components for big projects, and they click pictures, whether this is to point out their satisfaction or to mention that something is not going right. They click a picture and they send it immediately to the FileCloud. Strong integration with Office 365. So when you edit an Office file, it will be automatically locked. And so that the other users who would like to access the data will either be able only to read the file or not doing anything. It depends on the configuration. For the other files, we have a file locking mechanism, which we have to educate the users to lock the file if they want the file to be locked while they work on it. Team folders is something similar to a network share on the Windows or NFS terminology, but this is more to build a folder which will be shared by different users, and these different users will have different profiles. For example, you work on a large project, there are different participants, different companies, different contractors, and there are the customer themselves. So you can create a team folder where people that can collaborate, share, and you can define with a great flexibility the permissions of the different users. Full text search is a built-in mechanism. Every time you insert a document which contains text, there will be a process which is going to index the text inside the file so that you can do full text search on the data. Advanced file sharing, I will show you in the demonstration. You can easily share files, and you have a great flexibility on how to want to share the file. Is it totally open if you have the URL, or if you want to get a stronger and better protection? We have a lot of parameters which you can define. It's linked also to the granularity regarding folders and subfolders protection. Auditing and reports are extremely important because we can provide everything we need. If you have to show the evidence that you're doing things correctly, they will be part of the audit, and you can present them on reports and analytics, whether this is for legal purposes or simply for company corporate directions. Client management, we can remotely manage the clients. And if you have to deploy on a lot of workstations, on a lot of tablets or smartphones, the same application, rather than doing the configuration manually one by one on each and every tool, you can configure a mass deployment configuration file, and so that the users and the software is installed on their device will be properly configured. In addition to full text search, it could be interesting, especially for GDPR or HIPAA requirements, to be able to search on specific patterns. For example, on my demonstration, I will show you that I am using a pattern which is matching the format of a French passport. So you can search on the format of the French passport, and the system will automatically report through all of the files which contain such patterns. Sometimes it might not be a French passport, but if it is a French passport, is it normal that this file is being stored on the FileCloud solution? Branch office synchronization. If you have offices all over the planet, it could be sometimes a good idea to synchronize the FileCloud content to some of the remote branches locations, so that people, they will have a better and faster access to the data. And in the backend, the FileCloud sync or the FileCloud server sync is going to do the synchronizations between the sites. We can configure FileCloud in high availability mode. And we have also added since version 19, which is the beginning of this year, a lot of governance and compliance tools, which I will show you on the demonstration. So I'm going to say, oh, there are a lot of features. There are a lot of features, but not all of the customers. They need all of these advanced features like compliance, like high availability, like data governance, like high availability setup, etc. So we have two ways or two licenses, one which is called the standard license, another one which is called the enterprise license. And with the enterprise license, you have access to the data governance options, high availability, compliance, search on specific patterns, not on full text. For GDPR, there are mainly 5 things which company has to be compliant for. If you access the FileCloud system, you must give your consent, because what we do, we collect your email address, we collect your IP address. So you can customize when a new user is connecting to the FileCloud, a warning message. If you don't want to accept that we collect this data, you will not be able to connect to the FileCloud. If a user, particularly in a configuration where some of the users, they might be customers of the company who is making the FileCloud available, they want to be able to access their data. They want to be able also to copy of their data. So we have features for them to provide them all of the data we collected. We have the possibility also to anonymize user data, because the customer or the person doesn't want to be more on our system, but we want to keep the data because some of the data, they are still useful for us, so we can anonymize the data. We also have pattern search and additional admin accounts. So there are plenty of for an admin account, and we have specific permissions for the DPO, which can create on a weekly basis, for example, some reports, and we can also receive alerts on some particular critical situation. FileCloud data governance, we manage content retention and archiving, so we can define policies for automatic document lifecycle management, retention, archiving. For the archiving, it could be legal hold or archiving because, or legal hold because of corporate policies. And we use the same also for the deleted files. So if you delete a file on your FileCloud, sometimes we say, okay, these files that will be kept on the recycle bin for at least 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and after that they will be automatically deleted. Legal hold, this is something similar which Wasabi provides with the data immutability, so we can freeze data for a certain period of time. And again, this is not conflicting with Wasabi because you can use FileCloud without Wasabi, so we have to provide by a software way the equivalent of the data immutability. Policy attributes, we use metadata, which you can assign to specific files, and with the additional features, particularly data leak prevention and smart classification, we can automatically, when you upload a file and the full text index system is running, there will be content which will be predefined. You can add specific metadata to specific files, and then you define a data leak prevention mechanism, and you can say, for example, on this project, if a user who belongs to the group other, not to the group principal, for example, will not be able to download files if the file is a metadata set to confidential. So this is extremely powerful. This is the administrative tool I will show you during the demonstration. This provides also a data leak protection. Data leak protection in this case is if the user loses his mobile device, so we can wipe out the data remotely. A lot of analytics, reports, a lot of parameters we can set. Here we can see the data the quota which has been assigned to the users, the spread of the file types in the system, who are the most persons consuming the solution. So before we go to the real demonstration, let's see how we can, oh, sorry, the title is in French. What do we need to make this FileCloud Wasabi solution? Of course, you need a Wasabi account, and you have to create some buckets. If you want to use the buckets which will be dedicated to FileCloud, FileCloud is going to create it for you. But if you want to combine the FileCloud bucket and other existing buckets, which can be configured as a file share, you will be able to see both, and this is what we have on the demo system. For the FileCloud setup, we need to download the software to install it on one or several servers. It will depend on how you want to build your configuration. We can split the different components of the FileCloud architecture across multiple servers. And basically, once FileCloud has been installed, usually a lot of customers, they use either Active Directory or LDAP to provide authentication and to import users into the FileCloud. And you can, of course, create additional users, particularly if they are external users. And FileCloud is going to manage a storage. A storage is built of 3 different categories. The My Files storage, which can be considered as a home directory for each and every user on the FileCloud system. The team folders, which will be a set of folders plus the subdirectory or substructures, which will be shared across a group of people or a team of people, which can be from different profiles and different companies, which will be more efficient. Sometimes the network shares where you have all of the NTFS permissions and things like that, so you don't want to expose the network shares for external people. Combination of Wasabi and FileCloud, and particularly the inclusion of Wasabi into a FileCloud setup. For the new files, the My Files and the team folders, they will be on a bucket, which will be created and managed by FileCloud. The network shares will be related to other buckets, which might have been created already, especially if you're already a Wasabi customer, or you can create another bucket, which will be considered as a network share. Right. So let me go to the demonstration. I am here disconnected because there is a timeout on the system. It doesn't seem that there is. Here I am on the Wasabi side. On the Wasabi side, I can see that I have 2 buckets. This bucket has been created by FileCloud. So what you see inside is purely files with the specific names, because everything at this level is managed by the MongoDB database, which is managing the FileCloud configuration. Here, CodeLate Europe is a regular Wasabi bucket, which has been created. And here you can see the real file names. And on the demonstration, you will see that you retrieve some of these names. This is the admin interface. So there are 2 different URLs to connect. There is one which is /UI/admin to connect to the administration. And there is, without the admin, the same URL, but you can connect as a user. So here, an overview, a dashboard of what's happening on the system, the activity, the number of users, full guest limited, 3,118. So basically, if you remember, I said that the limited users are not going to count on the licenses, only the full and the guest user will count. 3 + 1 is 4. And this is what we see here on the license information. I have a license for 20 users. I'm currently using 4 users, and my license will expire on March 20th, 2020. Information about the version. There is apparently a small update, which I should do very soon. a view of the geographic locations of where people are connecting from, file type distribution, countries distribution, France, state, Tunisia, and who are the users who are consuming the most of the data. That's this JM Carré user, which I know him very well. And what are the different users and what is the quota which is being left for all of these users. And here we have a spread of the tools and the device which is used by users, and we have a combination of Windows, Android for the different users. So for FileCloud to work, we have to define a lot of parameters. The first one here will be the server. On a real system, instead of having an IP address as a URL, we would have installed an SSL certificate and the proper URL within the domain name, but we didn't do it. So that's purely a demo system. Here, what is interesting is we can define the language for both the user portal and the admin portal. We support, I would say, the most commonly spoken languages in the world. I can tell you the French is perfect. I can say more or less the same for German and Spanish. I cannot comment on Arabic and Chinese, but I'm pretty sure that this is very well. Not only here, for example, you define that the user portal, the language will be English, but you can define with what we call user policies that for a group of users, because you're a US company and you have a subsidiary in France, French-based users, they will have a French interface, while the other people will have an English-speaking interface. Storage, my files and the team folders, they are stored in a S3 compatible storage, which is typically, in this case, the Wasabi configuration. So if I would have time to go back to the Wasabi management system, I will retrieve my S3 key. I will show you in clear text my S3 secret key. Here you specify the location, EU-central. So this is extremely important because with GDPR, if you store sensitive data which belongs to a European citizen, it is a lot easier if the data are being stored in the European Union rather than, I would say, most of the rest of the world except a few countries. If not, you can, but there is a lot of administrative paperwork to do to get such a permission. Number of old versions to keep for each file. Parameter, because people are updating, modifying data. By default, we keep 3 versions, so that if there is a problem with one version, we can roll back to one of the previous versions. You can define it to 100 if you want to keep 100. And if you set it to -1, the versioning will be disabled. You can set a threshold on the versioning as well, because the versioning is a basic copy of the data. So if you have very large files, you can decide that a file which has a size larger than 1 GB, you're not going to use versioning. And this is exactly the example on the demonstration, 1 GB, perfect. Network, this is the network shares. I can define network shares, and I will show you which one I'm using on my system. And so that you will see the combination of using both Wasabi as a FileCloud storage and accessing via FileCloud an existing Wasabi bucket. Authentication, this is a basic demo system. I manually create the users. If I'm using Active Directory or LDAP, I need to configure all of the parameters for Active Directory and LDAP, and so that I will be able to import automatically a set of users from Active Directory into the FileCloud environment. The administrative parameters, there is one admin, which is the super administrator, the one which has all of the permissions. And in particular, this person will have also the permission to give a partial admin permissions to additional users. You can enable 2-factor authentication for admin login. You can also enable two-factor authentication for regular users, whether this is by emails, by SMS, by any other supported mechanism. Database, this is the MongoDB database, which is installed when you install the FileCloud software. All of the components that are provided in the FileCloud distribution, so you don't need to download MongoDB from one site and other component from another site. Everything comes bundled with the FileCloud distribution. Emails, there are a lot of notifications which are being sent by email, and here you define the account which is sending these emails. There are a lot of emails which are being sent, and later on you can customize based on the user profile if you're going to send them notification for this or particular specific task. Endpoint backup, this is quite interesting, particularly if you have a MyFiles configuration. You can decide to backup onto the FileCloud on the MyFiles other data which are on the PC, on the Macintosh, Apple device of the user, so that there will be a copy of the data which will be in a safe place on the FileCloud. And we do have also tools to backup the MongoDB database and to backup all of the FileCloud data. License, that's the way to update the license. I have an enterprise license, so I have all of the options available for me. Policies, this is user policy. So basically, it describes what is being applied to a user who has been configured to follow, for example, the global default policy. That's about sharing. Here, the person will be able to share everything. There is a storage quota for 15 gigabytes. Enable privacy settings. If I say, do not say yes, somebody new connects on the system with the email address, and we store the email address, we store the IP address. That's definitely a breach into the GDPR configuration. So the best is to put it to yes. Store deleted files. Yes, I'm not going to use the recycle bin for these users. The file also will be automatically deleted. Two-factor authentication. So if we decide to do so, we have to configure it. User policy. If I am a user, do I want to give to a specific user the possibility to invite additional people? Can this person invite additional people who might not be part of the company? So a lot of permissions, they can be tuned. And for example, you can decide that the manager of the project can invite automatically an external user because this person is collaborating with the company on a specific project. But a project member belonging to the company, if this person invites an external user, then the external user will be subject to approval by the administrator. Client application policy for mobile devices. Do you want to ask the users for entering their passcode on my iPad when I launch FileCloud? I am asked to enter again my password for my iPad. Do I want to disable connections on the mobile devices? If a person works 5 days a week from the office and doesn't need to work from home, there is no need for this person to have access to mobile applications or whatever. On the other hand, if the person is a salesperson, probably his favorite tool will be either the smartphone or the tablet. So you can have a large granularity on the solution. And this is about the notifications. So every time, every time there is an update notification, I have access to a file sharing. Somebody is updating one of the files. It's not disabled, so I will receive an email saying this file has been modified. Disable delete notification. If somebody deletes, I receive a notification. Disable download, preview, lock, unlock, self-notification. So this has to be fine-tuned by the system administrator if they want to avoid some people to be polluted by a lot of notification emails. Single sign-on, SSO. It's widely adopted by customers who have a nice infrastructure with Active Directory and everything, so that when a person logs in on his PC, they automatically logged in on the FileCloud system. Content search. So content search is based on Solar, which is part of the Apache distribution. It gives you an overview of the data. And here you see that we can create, because I have the enterprise license, a PII pattern and enable PII search. For example, I'm going to use this one for the demo. I created a pattern, which is a friend's passport number, which is made of 2 digits, 2 letters, uppercase or lowercase, and 5 digits. So a document which is going to contain such a pattern, that could be a friend's passport, and that might not be relevant and compliant with the company guidance, and so that might not be compliant also with the GDPR regulation. Team folders. So I have created team folders, and I will be able to manage team folders. I will show you in a minute. Third-party integration. We support integration with antivirus, ICAP, CLAM. We support Salesforce. And we recently added the support of SIEM, System Information and Event Management. So we can forward to the SIEM configuration all of the logs which are being collected by the solution. And a lot of additional parameters about the format, date, about the users, how we can search the users, the password for the users. Do we want a password which has at least 8 characters long? Do we want to have strong passwords, etc.? The usual things which we have to put in place. And the more you want to be robust and minimize any risk on your solution, the more you have to use a stronger password. Notifications, that's the default notification, which we saw on the other screen. Sharing settings, how do we share data? Do we share via link? Do we share via name? Do we have the possibility to preview a document? Previewing a document, you will preview it from the website, but you're not necessarily able to download the document. Support services, directory, scrapper, dual security, that's for dual authentication. How do we provide it? We support SMS also, and you need to have the additional tools to perform this configuration. So users, here on my system, I have a view of all the users who have been created. As you remember, there are, if I'm not mistaken, 18 invited users, which we can see here. But if I go to another page, here I have users with full access, like myself. Here I have another user, JMC Samsung, which is only a guest access. So I have privileges, but I'm not a full access on the system. And I can create groups. For example, I have created a group called Late Friends, and I manually assign members by moving, and I've been assigned to this Code Late Friends group. On the other group, I have one member, which is this other user, and I will use these 2 profiles for my demonstration about data link preventions. Admins, here, this is all of the permissions which a user have access, an admin has access to. If I want to give an admin user with limited permissions, I will select the one I have to add. Team folders, we retrieve what we have seen. I have created a team folder on the team folder, which is called My Team, I have subdirectories, I have files, and I have sharing information, and I can manage data in the system. Sharing the URL. Remember, I told you that there are multiple ways to share permissions. I can share permissions by adding a specific name if the name is not found on the configuration, and I can give share permissions to a group of users. I gave to CodeLate friends all of the permissions, but the other I didn't give the share permissions. For example, the persons belonging to other group are not employed by the company, so I give them certain permissions, but not as much as I would give to the other regular employees. You can set an expiration date for a share, define the date. You can share also minimum or maximum upload capacity. It's unlimited. Network folders. Network folders, they are outside of the FileCloud storage. And for example, here I retrieve the CodeLate Europe buckets, which I show you on the previous Wasabi screen. So this is available as a network share. Here, I even have a share, which is in the local storage /home/share on my server, which is a Linux server. So let's have a look at the metadata. I created several metadata. Here, I have a metadata which I call PII, and that will be used for info containing passport number information. And for metadata, you can define several attributes. Here I define an attribute, which I called level. And for the attribute, which is of enumeration type, it can be either confidential or open. So the users, depending on their profile, they have access to the metadata, so they can assign themselves metadata. But you can use also this metadata for other operations, and particularly for the smart classification. But before going to the smart classification, let's have a look at the federated search. I want to do a search based on PII. I want to search on France's passport number. I want to search on the entire system. And I get the list of all of the documents which contains a possible passport number. That could be another number which has nothing to do with the passport number. But in that case, this is one. So that can be used for the DPO. And you can run this on a weekly basis or daily basis, and it will report all of the data which is can be considered as sensitive. It is normal that they are on the FileCloud share. Sometimes yes, because they are accessible only to the employees, and there is no risk of data leak or risk on the data. But on some other location, that might not be a good choice. So the company can quickly react and make the appropriate changes and correction to the solution. Smart classification is going to help a lot on this. Here, it's a little bit not complex, but you have to do a little bit of programming. But basically here, what it says that I will scan on the My Team/support directory, and all of the files, I will search for the pattern names, France passport number. If it matches my search, I will assign the attribute confidential to my PII metadata. If it doesn't, I will assign the open metadata. And here I can then create a smart data leak protection, which I have created. Here I created that if a user does not belong to the CodeLate group, to the group CodeLate France, and the metadata contains the attribute level to confidential, I will not authorize the file download. So I will show you how it works because I'm going to connect as a user. Now I am the user, Tian Carey. I have my files. I retrieve a lot of data which I put on the system. On some of this data here, I have a metadata which has been assigned. I have another folder here. That's the recording of the webinar we did last week. We are currently recording the webinar, and we will find a way to post it. And a FileCloud solution is the best way for you to download the webinar content. Here you can see what's happening with the data. I have shared a folder. Are there metadata? I can decide if I have the permissions to do so, to add a specific metadata. Oops. If I return to my files, I can see the team folders. And here, remember, I said on support, this is a team folder. And here you see my smart data classification has done the work. So for example, on this file, it's confidential. But for example, on this file, the metadata PII is safe. Oops. Open. I belong to the group CodeLate France. So if I want to do a download of this data, which is, let me double check, yes, confidential, I will be able to download the data. I can open the file and view it because I belong to the company and it's compliant. Oh, this is a nice European passport and French passport picture. Now, let me connect using another browser. I am connected with a different username, with this famous JMC Samsung user. And this person has access to the same team folder, but remember, he belongs to the other group. So if I select the same document, I say, I'm going to download this document. I cannot, it's forbidden because of the DLP rule called passport. But if you remember, there was a document here which has the, no, this is not this one, which has the metadata set not to permissions. I would be able to preview the document. This one, this is the sheet. Open, and I can download. Okay, and that makes sense. This is not obviously related to a passport. So we have different users. If I want to share data, I can share. The basic way is to give the URL and send the URL to the person. This is not the smartest thing to do. Instead, I'm going to invite a selected person. So for example, I can decide to invite Richard. Oops, Richard. Wasabi.com. I hope this is your correct email address. Yes. So the system doesn't know Richard. It searches, it doesn't find it. So it's going to be invited. So right now, Richard has already received an invitation to connect to the FileCloud. He has a predefined password, and the predefined password, you can configure it for the first time that the user connects to change the password, to use something which will be more easy for this person to remember. And then you will receive another email that I shared a file with him, and this is the link to be able to download the file. And depending on the permissions I gave to Richard, he may be able as well to upload files. In that case, I should have shared the folder, not the file. You can upload new data on the file share. If you remember, I told about network shares, and I have network shares, which is the Wasabi CodeLate. if I go back to my Code Late Europe files, demo, webinar, hotel, sorry, I retrieve exactly the same data. Okay, so that's very interesting because I know that some of the participants on the call, they already created data and buckets on the Wasabi solution. If you decide to work with FileCloud, you can get access to your existing buckets and you retrieve your data. And I can do exactly the same operations. I can decide to share a file with another user. I'm going to use the advanced option. In that case, I'm going to invite again my friend Richard. In that case, it is already recognized by the system, and Richard is going to receive an email with the link to download this particular file. All right, here I have a list of my shares, all the different files I have shared with people. And basically that's all. I have settings, I have the flexibility as a user to change some of the parameters. I can decide to change the language from English, for example, to Spanish. And automatically the system is going to refresh. And now, mi GUI habla español, okay, archivos, etc. I can work in the new language. As you have seen, when I change the language, we set it back to English. The system is refreshing and the system displays the login page, which is very customized because there is a nice picture of Paris and the Eiffel Tower. So basically, we are close to the hour. I don't know if there are a lot of questions. Omar, did you have a lot of questions on the chat or on the Q&A session?
Yes, we did have a few questions come in. Manoj, who's our director of sales, has been taking a few of these in the chat. Thank you, Manoj.
Okay.
If anybody else has more questions, you can just post them in the Q&A or in the chat, and yeah, we'll take a look at them as they come in.
So here on the last slide, which is currently displayed, you have the link to the Wasabi website and to the getfilecloud.com website, where you can download your trial software, whether this is FileCloud or Wasabi. And of course, you can use both in combination of both. And if you want to have more information, feel free to contact us. Feel free to contact Richard for Wasabi. Feel free to contact myself, particularly if you're located in Europe, for FileCloud questions. CodeLate is the company name which is developing the FileCloud software. I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Otherwise, I would like to thank you for your participation. You have been quite a lot to participate, and we like that. If you want to give us feedback, if you want to have questions, whatever could be your question and comments for us to improve for the next time we do a similar webinar, I will be happy to do so. And as I said, the webinar has been recorded. I will stop the record in a few seconds. And if you want to download the recorded session, we will provide it to you by email and send with a link from where you can download the session. So Richard, do you have anything else to add before we?
Yes, I would like to thank you very much. So if you have any question, I've seen some questions related to GDPR and our European location. So we're expanding, of course, to Europe. We will be opening a second location in Europe very soon. We are looking very closely at what's going to happen in the UK with the Brexit. So we expect to also address this concern. If ever we go to a Brexit situation with hard discussions, we might be in a position to open a location also in the UK in the coming year. So all these questions came around. So I'm available if you have any question
regarding prices, how it's articulated, and so on. So feel free to contact me. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a good day if you're still in the morning, or good evening if you're more on the European time zones. Thank you very much. And now we are going to conclude the webinar.